What I have done as a citizen is I've said what I believe the party needs to hear. I've said what I think the country needs to hear. I spent 6 years working with the Bush administration on both health and national security. It was all for free.
What did you do for Freddie Mac? I mean,
I advised them largely on two things. How do you explain government-sponsored enterprises? And second, how do you design a program that enables the poor to be able to afford to get into housing? And my focus was, because I'd come out of a background of Habitat for Humanity, how do you teach them budgeting? How do you teach them how to set money aside? How do you teach them to take care of the house? You know, I've watched families that don't have very much money, but they know how to take care of a house, and they can have a much bigger, much better house than a family that doesn't understand how to take care of a house.
Let me go back to the words you used that we were just playing the sod earlier about the judiciary. You said arrogant, dictatorial. We should not have a judicial dictatorship. And it was interesting because that I recall come up in previous debates. And
I commended Megyn Kelly for raising it and staying on it.
Yeah.
So tonight is the first time, I think, probably since Lincoln's debates in 1860, or his inaugural in 1861, that you've seen a presidential candidate in this kind of a setting talking in depth about the need to rebalance the judiciary, I think, and talking about it in a very serious, sophisticated way, not just railing against liberal judges, but saying, look, the whole attitude of the judiciary is out of sync. They're not dictators. They don't define the Constitution. They are one of three co-equal branches, and we were promised in the Federalist Papers they'd actually be the weakest of the three branches. Now, when I look at something like Judge Barry in San Antonio, who on June 1st said to students, not only can you not pray at your graduation, you cannot use the word benediction, you cannot use the word invocation, you cannot ask people to stand, you cannot mention God, you cannot ask for a moment of silence, and if you break any of these, I will put your superintendent in jail. Now, I thought to myself, this is an anti-American dictatorial ruling. That guy shouldn't be on the bench.
You said yesterday to me, when I was interviewing you on radio, you had responded to Mitt Romney, and you said you felt you got off your message. In other words, for the day, because he had said you're zany, etc. And then you were joking about it tonight when you said zany, editing. I'll use mild words. So obviously you were joking about it tonight. What did you mean by that? That you got off?
Well, there was a very brief moment where, frankly, he got under my skin.
Yeah.
And I responded in a way that made no sense, doesn't fit my values, and made some references to Bain, where I've said publicly he's a good manager. He's a good businessman. But, you know, he got that round. If you were scoring rounds in boxing, I'd give that round to Mitt. But I then spent a day thinking it through. We issued a letter. We've issued instructions to our entire team. This campaign from day one has been based on very big solutions and a relentlessly positive approach. And I think people who watch the debates
Last question.
I've really worked at that.
How do you get, if you become the nominee, how will you convince Barack Obama for the Lincoln-Douglas-style debates? I think you said, what, seven of them?
Seven of them, the same as Lincoln.
How are you going to get Barack Obama to agree to that?
If he hasn't agreed by the time I am in my acceptance speech in Tampa, I will announce that as of that evening, the White House is my scheduler. And wherever he goes, I will show up 4 hours later and take apart his speech until he agrees to a debate.
And you believe that'll force him to
I think he'll look absurd. This is what Lincoln did to Douglas. That's why Douglas agreed to debate. And so I'm prepared to do it to Obama.
Mr. Speaker, good to see you. Thanks so much for being with us. And coming up, former Massachusetts governor, I'm going to tell him that you said you're giving him that round when we come back. As we continue from the spin room, we're in Sioux City, Iowa. Still to come tonight, former Governor Romney. We'll check in with Rick Perry, Michele Bachmann, and much more. Please stay with us.
This is a president who fundamentally believes that this next century is the post-American century. Perhaps it's going to be the Chinese century. He's wrong. It has to be the American century. America has to lead the free world. And the free world has to lead the entire world. The right course under President Obama's plans is to shrink our military, thinking somehow if we appease or accommodate the tyrants of the world, that the world will be safer. He's wrong.
And welcome back to this post-debate spin room edition of Hannity. We're live in Sioux City, Iowa. Now, starting early in tonight's debate, former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney began making his case as to why he believes he is the best candidate to take on President Barack Obama in 2012. And joining me now is the man himself, Governor Romney. How are you? Good to see you.
Terrific, Sean. Good to see you.
All right. So Newt Gingrich was just on, and he actually said that you two have become. He's come to really. You guys have gotten closer. You know, I don't know necessarily if we can see all this on stage, and has come to respect you a lot. And he said when he responded to you yesterday with the Bain Capital, and which I asked him about, he said that he shouldn't have responded. He gave that round to you.
So well, that's very nice of him. Look, I can handle almost anything that's going to get thrown from my colleagues on the stage, because I know that what's going to come from President Obama is going to be a lot tougher. And I got broad shoulders. I can handle it. And it's appropriate for us to talk about the various differences that we have with candidates on the stage. Let people take a chance of or get an opportunity to see what we believe. But this is now the time for closing arguments here in Iowa, because people are going to be voting in just a couple of weeks, and I want them to hear why I ought to be the nominee.
What I really took note of tonight was you went after the president and said he was weak, talking about foreign policy. You really went at him in a strong way tonight. Do you think he has adopted an appeasement mentality? Is he making the country more dangerous? Is he weak as a president?
Well, the greatest threat that America faces in the near term is a nuclear Iran. And if you ask the question, have we somehow dissuaded Iran from their nuclear ambition, the answer is no. The president had an engagement policy he spoke about. And ever since his engagement policy has been in place over the last 3 years, things have gotten worse with Iran. They're moving towards a nuclear capability. They've supplied Hamas, Hezbollah, the Taliban. They were not in a better position there. And then with regards to peace in Israel, are we closer there? He was very critical of President Bush for not establishing a Middle East peace agreement between the Palestinians and Israel. We're no closer than we were under President Bush. And look at the relationship we have with Russia. They continue to be resurgent and aggressive. China's becoming assertive. This president has failed us in some of the most important arenas in the world.
Right after the debate, we had Frank Luntz on, and I asked him to assess the strengths and weaknesses of every candidate in the debate tonight, and he said no weaknesses for you. He thought tonight was your best performance. Did you feel this was a strong night for you as you're up there? Do you feel you gain confidence as it's going on? Did you feel that yourself?
Well, we've had, 10, 12, 13 debates by now, and I've been pretty pleased with the debates before this. You really can't shape exactly which questions you get. And so some probably are better than others, but this was a good chance for me, and I think for the others, to describe why they ought to become the nominee of our party. I think the questioners asked questions that elicited our distinctive capabilities. That was a good thing.
There's a lot, obviously, that you all agree on together here. It was interesting. One thing I didn't know that I learned about you tonight, and I'd like to think I knew, at this point I'd known everything about you, and I will not ask you about Romney Care. I didn't know that it was 85% Democratic legislature in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And I didn't know the process of selecting judges either. When the question came up about 3/4 of the judges being Democrats, I didn't know that process also included a lot of Democrats having to approve.
Oh, yeah. There are things that people learn. My legislature, I'll tell you, when I recognized, you got 85% Democrats in the legislature, and my veto can be overturned at will. I vetoed some 800 times in Massachusetts.
That's a lot.
But the legislature had the power just to brush those aside if they wished, and I found ways to use my power. I had some power, of course, and I also found some persuasiveness and built a relationship with respect with the leaders, and so we were able to work together. But, it's very different governing in a state where your legislature is the most one-sided Democratic legislature, I believe, in the country. Versus one where you have all Republicans.
So it would be like me sitting at a table with 5 Bob Beckles. That's how I would look at that. I watched the last debate on Saturday night, and I thought that was a good debate. And then I'm watching the spin immediately thereafter, and the big news to come out of this debate tonight is Mitt Romney made a $10,000 bet with Rick Perry. And I'm thinking how many times I have done that on TV, which is quite often. Thought it was a bit superfluous, a little petty. What did you think of the reaction to that? Were you surprised that became an issue after the?
Oh, that's the nature of this process. You can't gauge what's going to get focused upon, and what, if you will, what the mainstream media is going to try and pump up. I know that's what the Democratic National Committee was trying to push, and you sort of laugh at that and brush it aside. Ann said to me afterwards, she gave me a big hug and kiss. She said I did a great job. She said, Mitt, there are a lot of things you do real well. Betting isn't one of them.
So your wife said that?
Yeah, Ann said that. Yeah. So it's like,
my
okay.
wife said that when I played blackjack once or twice. Yeah, so
I'm not going in for any more bets in these debates.
You talked about something that really got my attention tonight too, when you talked about an American century, and then comparing it to Barack Obama, not America in decline. Do you think the world is viewing America in decline?
Oh, no question.
And do you think that how do you turn it into an American century? Because you're really talking about a 180-degree turnaround.
Yeah.
Because most Americans think that their kids will not be better off. This will be the first generation where we don't hand off a stronger country.
The two inputs to making this an American century are one, our values, our commitment to principles of freedom, of opportunity, a merit-based society, a family-oriented society. That's one input. The other input is an economy that leads the world. And for that to happen, we have to make America the best place in the world for innovation, for entrepreneurs, for business small and business large. This president has made America less and less attractive for investment and innovation. And as a result, it's going elsewhere.
Last question.
So that's what we have to do to make this an American century.
The president has been using class warfare, as we know.
Yeah.
Says Republicans want dirty air, dirty water. He says Republicans want old people, kids with autism and Down syndrome to fend for themselves. Pretty outrageous charges.
It's really shameful.
Explain. And how do you counter that if you get this nomination?
I think the president has gone from being a failed presidency, a guy over his head, to someone who is now so desperate to get re-election that he's doing things that are very much counter to the interests of the country, and he knows it. In the past, I think he was just misguided. Now I think he really knows that his decision on Afghanistan to pull the troops out a couple of months earlier than the commanders suggested, that was not a wise thing for the country. The Keystone Pipeline, he knows we need that oil. He knows the consequences. But in order to hold on to his power, he's willing to tip his hat to the extreme environmental lobby in his party. It's really an unveiling of the president that's not a flattering picture that we see.
How important is Iowa? New Hampshire is viewed as a strong state. You're leading in the polls in New Hampshire. It's very tight here in Iowa. You have one poll that came out today, but it's 1 point. It's very close. How important is it? What position do you need to come in here to stay strong going into New Hampshire?
I know it's going to fly in the face of what everybody in the media world wants to see, which is each state is this. This state is the be-all and end-all. Look, everybody wants to win Iowa, and you all hope to do that. But the truth is, this process is going to go on for a while. We got to get 1,150 delegates.
Distribution from the beginning.
The way the Democrats did is the way we allocate our delegates now. This could go on for quite a while. I hope to do well early. I hope to get the support of Iowa, but I'm not counting on getting every state. I won't get all the early states. I want to get as much support as I can, and I want to make sure that as the big states come along, I've got the resources to carry a campaign forward and get the delegates I need to become the nominee.
Governor, great to see you again. Thank you so much
for
being with us. Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
And coming up, our post-debate spin room coverage continues. We are live in Sioux City, Iowa. When we come back, Ron Paul will join me next on the set, and also coming up tonight, Rick Perry, Michele Bachmann. They'll all be here as we continue.
I would be a different kind of president. I wouldn't be looking for more power. Everybody wants to be a powerful executive and run things. I, as a president, wouldn't want to run the world. I don't want to police individual activities and their lifestyle, and I don't want to run the economy. So that's like an entirely different philosophy, but it's very, very much in our tradition and in the tradition of our Constitution.
And welcome back to Sioux City, Iowa. Tonight, the GOP presidential hopefuls took to the stage, and they were outlining their visions for getting America back on track. And joining me now is the man you just heard from. That's Texas Congressman Ron Paul. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for being with us. I noticed you never gave a full answer to, I think it was Megyn Kelly's question. Will you promise, if you don't win this nomination, and you're doing very well here in Iowa, that you will support the Republican nominee and not run third party?
Well, I'll give the same answer I've given about 39 times now. That I have no intention of doing that. I plan to do my very best and see what happens in the next 2 months. So I'm not making pledges.
I don't want to push it too hard, but when you say no intention, it leaves the door open.
Yeah.
So you're leaving the door open.
I don't like absolutes. I don't like to say, I absolutely will never do such and such. So I'm just avoiding
but you absolutely
the absolute.
support the U.S. Constitution.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
That's a little bit different than pledging to politicians.
Well, but I mean,
politicians aren't
But
as...
the thing is, you know that if you ran third party, and I think why people are looking for an answer, you would probably siphon off some of the anti-Obama vote. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
But wouldn't it be